Get going. Hello, everybody. Today we're talking to Ruud van der Locht, who is in Belgium at the moment. Ruud is very interested in crowdfunding, and he has a company, Pix Stories. Is that correct, Ruud, or am I mistaken?
No, it's very correct. Pix Stories. That's my company.
That is great. So, Ruud, can you give us a brief background about yourself and how you got so excited about the crowdfunding arena and got into this environment?
Yeah. When I quit high school, I went on for a study of social worker. I did a study of social worker, and I did also work a couple of years like a social worker. So that social engagement was there already when I was very young. But then languages were also something I used to do with great passion, and I began to write also. And I became a journalist, and I worked for magazines and newspapers in Belgium. And after a while, I began also to write for different firms and organizations in Belgium. And then a couple of years ago, crowdfunding became more and more popular in the Netherlands and in Belgium and in Western Europe. And in fact, it's a combination of my two passions. On one way, my social engagement, and on the other way, my communication skills, because I learned that there are a lot of projects, interesting projects, but that not always the projects are very good communicated. So I wanted to help project holders of crowdfunding projects to communicate better. And so I found the two passions together, the social pact in myself and the communication skills.
Okay, that's
I'm so passionate about crowdfunding.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're obviously around, you've seen a number of crowdfunding campaigns, I'm sure, and as you say, you've helped some people in terms of theirs. From your experience, how long do people prepare for their campaign before they actually launch it on a crowdfunding platform? How long do they prepare, and how long should they prepare?
Yeah, that preparation is very important, of course. It's maybe I think it's the most important part, or at least one of the most important parts of the whole campaign. It's difficult to say how long, because there is not a standard for that. It depends of what kind of crowdfunding campaign you'll do. Maybe you need only €1,000 for a small clubhouse in a small place. But for the same price, you need €1 million for a big project. So that's not that easy, but it's very important, I think, when the campaign starts, that your own network, your own personal network, you need to have a own network. It's very important. They have to know that you're going to do a campaign. It's important that they know what you're going to do, what's your goal, and how much money you need. So sometimes it can be 3 weeks, sometimes it can be 2 years, for instance. Important is that your own network knows what you want to do, because these people are the first people who have to support your campaign.
Okay, yes. No, I mean, that makes sense. And how do people usually decide how much they actually want to raise? What have you seen?
That is very different also. Because I cooperated here in Antwerp on the organization Crowdfunding, and these are small projects in the city to stimulate the city dynamics, and it's about 3,000 till 10,000 euros max. But there are also, because we have crowdfunding in the profit and non-profit, of course, and you have also startups, economic startups, and then we talk about sometimes 100,000 euros, 200,000 till €1 million. So that's also different. Profit, non-profit, that can be very widely, very large, the the range of amount that people want to take.
And what do you think is the most important aspect to make a crowdfunding campaign a success? What is really important for the person to do?
Yeah, I think crowdfunding has also a certain methodology to follow of a crowdfunding campaign. So first, in the beginning of before you start, you stimulate your own network, your friends. They call it friends, family, and fools. They say FFF. So you talk to your friends, to your family about your campaign. So because it's very important that there's a rule that when you start with the campaign, after a couple of weeks, you reach 30% of your amount. Because when you reach that 30%, other people who visit your crowdfunding platform see that the campaign is running well. And that's a kind of mass psychology. People wants to give money, but only to winners. If you see, hey, it's already 30% after 2 weeks, that's a winner. So we give money. If there's only 2%, people say, oh, that's not a good campaign because they have only 2% after 3 weeks. That's very important that you warm up your network and reach these 30% very, very soon. That's the first part of the campaign. Then you have a second part, and then you feel it goes a little bit slower, and that's the moment to go, for instance, to press, to newspapers, to local TV stations. The mistake is that a lot of people do that already in the beginning. And now in the beginning you have your own network, and then when it slows a little bit, then you go to the press. And when you get press articles, you get a renewed start, and you can reach other people out of your own direct network. And then at the end, you have the third part of a campaign, and then you use the urgency. Then you say to people, oh, we need still €1,000, and this is a good project, and we need it soon because in 2 weeks the campaign is ended. And you use that urgency to push people a little bit on a soft, silent way, to say, hey, help us, please, because this is a very good project. And this methodology is very important to follow, because crowdfunding is also hard working. People forget sometimes crowdfunding. You have to work on it every day with articles, with social media, with a website, with a movie, for instance.
Okay, yeah. I mean, and what are some of the mistakes you've seen people make in terms of their campaigns?
Yeah, mistakes. One of them, of course, to underestimate their network. Your own network is very important. When you don't have that personal network, you have to build one first, or you have to stop the plans for a crowdfunding campaign. That's one. The second one, don't go to the press or the local press in the beginning too soon, because you need them in the middle of your campaign. And yeah, three, what I said, don't think it's easy. Some people think, okay, we drop our project on a crowdfunding platform and the money will roll in. That's not true. You have to work. It's working, and work with, if it's possible, not alone, but with a team of people to pull on this project and to push this project.
So where do you think, what do you think crowdfunding's role is in the sort of startup ecosystem? More the not sort of donations, but how do you see crowdfunding aiding the startup ecosystem?
Sorry, I didn't understand the last.
So in terms of startups, how does crowdfunding help, and how can people use it to work in that startup business environment?
I think there are a lot of people in business. They call them also the crowd, the crowd angels, and sometimes business people who have already a big company and who want to invest in startups, because it's very difficult these days in Belgium and in Europe. I don't know how it is in Africa, but it's not easy these days for starters to go to the bank and ask for money, because the bank will say, yeah, but we don't believe in your plan, we don't believe in your idea. And so crowdfunding is a very good alternative. And there are a lot of people, when you have a good business plan and a good idea, they will invest in young people, or they will share in your new firm. But I think it's also important that you have a real good idea, good business plan, and a perspective, a future perspective.
Okay, yes. Why do you think it's important for the consumer to understand crowdfunding, and in particular, I know you're not African, but the African consumer?
Yeah, I think crowdfunding can be a very good tool, a very positive tool for Africa, because in fact crowdfunding / old-fashioned exists already in Africa, because there are a lot of people, families who raises money for honeymoon, or for baptist of a child, or for different things, because there is a social cohesion in Africa, much more I think than for instance in Europe. And I think this tradition, they raise also money, for instance, for churches or for mosques, and that's also a kind of crowdfunding, old-fashioned. So I think the idea is already in the heads and the hearts of the people. So I think can be very interesting for Africa, and also for the economic race for Africa. And I think for small projects, micro projects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And can you think of any things that you think would be the most challenging aspects for crowdfunding in Africa? So what do you think is really going to be a challenge?
I think African people, I visited a couple of times Africa. I was in South Africa, also in Benin, in the middle of Africa. And I learned to know African people as very proud people. They are proud, and proud on themselves and on their continent. And they have reasons, a lot of reasons to be proud on it. And I think when they can work on a project, they can show their proudness also, because I think talking about money or amounts of money is not so much taboo in Africa than in Europe. Here people don't want to tell how much they earn or how much they gave to a project. But I think in Africa it's different. People can be proud. Oh, I donated for that project because it's important. I think it's more open there, and yeah, they can show their proudness by working together on a project. And I think when the project will be reached, then it's very beautiful, because I will give you a very good example of a project I worked also on. It's a boy you have in Belgium, in Europe, and maybe also in South Africa. Make a Wish. It's an organization. You know Make a Wish?
Yes. Yeah.
About sick children, and they can do a wish. And there was a Belgian boy who had cancer, and he saw a program on TV about the problem of water in different African countries, that there was less water. And his wish was, hey, I want to build water put a hole in Gambia or in Africa, and then make a wish to choose a project in Gambia. And the project is running now, and it's running very well. And normally in June, a team of Belgian people goes to Gambia, and together with people from Gambia, they're gonna build it, and it will serve water to 2,000 people. That's very beautiful. That's a cooperation of European people with African people, and that's a very beautiful project. And I think, it's in Africa, people will feel themselves very proud when they can cooperate on such a project.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is that the African diaspora, so African people living abroad, are playing quite a role in crowdfunding on the continent in Africa.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think that their role should be? You think that's an important thing for them to do?
That can be okay. They can support projects of crowdfunding, but I don't think it has to be necessary. I shall say it another way. A project can also be successful without the support of the diaspora. Okay, when people from here, for instance in Brussels, and there live a lot of people from Congo who immigrated to Belgium, to Brussels, because Congo was a colony of Belgium in the past. Okay, they can help, but it's I think it doesn't has to be. I think Africa is doing very well. I read in an economic way. It's a continent with a lot of possibilities for the future. So I think people can do it on themselves. And when they get aid or support from Europe or from America, from other Africans, okay, why should they say no to the support? But they have to be self-conscious enough to say we can do it on our own also. I think that's very important. And that can be, I think that can be also very good for the self-conscious of the Africans, because in the past they were always oppressed, but they don't have. They have a lot of possibilities. They have a lot of qualities we don't have. I've seen that in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think the impact of crowdfunding is going to be in the next 10 years? And well, in the world and in Africa as well.
Yeah, I think that crowdfunding will give possibility to a lot of projects, will give oxygen to a lot of projects, good projects, which will not develop in the classical capital world, because we've seen it with the crisis of the banks years ago. They think, most of the banks think very conservative and traditional. So, and with crowdfunding, we can do it another way. And it's an alternative way of financing projects, as well in the profit world as in the non-profit world. So I think that is a big challenge also for the future. And I think also for young people from today, that there is a lot of things are possible. You had already the internet, what made the world much of less smaller and give much more possibilities to communicate with the rest of the world. But when you crowdfunding can be a very good thing to make also dreams professional, who can make also professional dreams come true. because the internet is also a very important weapon, in fact, for crowdfunding campaigns. You can use it very good with movies, with videos, for social media. So I think crowdfunding will help a lot of projects to exist in the future, and especially also in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a few questions that are sort of off the crowdfunding topic and a little bit towards you. Could you share with the community here what internet resource, something like Slack or Evernote or something like that, what do you think is a really good internet resource that you use?
That was not totally clear to me, that question, Gavin. Do you mean a certain website, a crowdfund website I like, or what did you mean with that question?
So essentially, in terms of an internet resource, so for example, what can't you live without? Essentially, like you wouldn't be able to live without using this tool, so Slack or Google Drive, or what do you really think is great?
Yeah, what's very important for me or in my life. Yeah, in fact, I'm an information addict. Already when I was a child, I read the newspaper on the floor. And so I would say, for me, it's important the internet, what the internet gave is much more information worldwide, and good news sites, and there are a lot of them, and they can be the traditional ones, but also very alternative ones. Sometimes not from big papers, but from people who build it themselves, an information channel or a blog. For instance, a website I noticed here, it's Crowdfunding for Culture. It's also an international website with all kinds of cultural projects. That's for instance a very interesting one, and that's one of the big benefits of the internet, of course, that there's much more information. And for me, this information, as long as it's not fake news, then I like it very much.
Okay, no, that's great. And is there any particular book that you have read that's made a big impact in your life? And what, if there is, I mean, what book is it?
You know about crowdfunding, or?
No, any particular book.
Yeah, I know, and that was, I think, very important. When I was at high school at 16, 17 years old, we read, it's a very famous book, you will know it, I think. We read at school, we had to read at school, Lord of the Flies,
Okay, yes.
And that was for me how these animals lived together, and some pigs are more equal than other pigs, and how these live together, and how social structures work in this world. And that was for me an eye-opener, and I think that there also raised my social engagement. Mm-hmm. I would do things for people who don't get what I earn.
Yes.
I thought it was very important for me, that book.
No, absolutely. So Ruud, can you share with us and with the community, what projects are you working on now? What are you doing? What excites you every day?
Projects of crowdfunding.
Yeah.
I think crowdfunding can also be a very good tool to create and stimulate dynamics in little places, between people, in organizations, like this crowdfunding here in Antwerp, where I worked for. These are little projects with the goal to stimulate interaction between people in certain neighborhoods, regions of the city, and I think that is that's very interesting. Not always easy. I know Cape Town a little bit because I was there a couple of times. There are also neighborhoods who are not that good or maybe a little bit dangerous, but I think these places are also places where crowdfunding can be a tool, a help to make a better region or a better quarter of that. I think that's not the easiest way of crowdfunding, but these micro projects, I think, can be very interesting. Micro projects with innovative services, innovativity, also very important, technology, and I think that can be a very, very interesting. I think you have the social aspect, you have the communication aspect, you have the technology aspect, and if you can make a combination of these things, I think you can do a lot of things for people in cities or in rural areas, but more in cities, I think, who can have a better life through crowdfunding projects.
Okay, now that's great. And if people wanted to get hold of you, learn more from you, find out what you're doing, how would people do that? How could people get hold of
you? Yeah, they can always contact me, of course, because my website is in Dutch. So people who read English, most of English or French, like most of the people in Africa, but they can reach me. I can talk and write French and English, so they can always reach me by email, also by Facebook. I get my Facebook on my own name, but also on Pix Stories. So and I'm always interested because it's a long time I've been in Africa, and I still will come back there because I find it a very interesting continent, and I'm also interested in what you're doing with your organization there. So I will follow it, and maybe in the future we can even meet each other if I come back to South Africa, if you come to Europe. But people who wants to ask things or questions, or they can always reach me on my email address. You have it, Ruud@pixandstories.be, or my Facebook, or the Facebook of Pix and Stories. I'm very pleased to help them, or to speak with them, or to give answers on their questions. Absolutely.
No, that's great.
Because I still wanted to say one thing, Kevin.
Yes.
So I talked your first question of this part of the interview. You asked for me the resources I find important, and social media is one of the most important resources. I use it also because the big benefit of social media is you can easily connect with people all over the world, and that's a very big benefit, because there are so many good ideas in this world. So why shouldn't we connect them with each other? Why shouldn't we share them? It would be a shame if we don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think that the way the world is moving is towards a lot of collaboration, where where people from different areas, different backgrounds can actually come together and make things better in the long term for all. So is there anything you'd like to just share around crowdfunding, what you think and feel before we say goodbye to you today?
Yeah, I think especially to Africa and to your organization, go for it, because crowdfunding is a very good tool, and I believe, especially for Africa also, I believe very much in this crowdfunding, and I think it can be it can lead to very beautiful projects, I think. So I would say go for it, and you have my moral support. Totally.
Ruud, thank you so much. I mean, it was really great to chat to you. And as you say, I mean, I look forward to us being able to continue to meet up and make things go forward into the future. So thanks so much, and have a great afternoon.
Yeah, for you too, and it was a great pleasure to me to do this interview. Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Ruud. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you are as excited about crowdfunding as we are, subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below.